A deputy base commander of a United States Air Force installation stands in a freezing English forest at night, holds a tape recorder to his mouth, and narrates a glowing object as it bleeds particles of light and splits into 5. His voice is shaking. The tape still exists. They call it Britain's Roswell. But Roswell is rumor and recovered wreckage no one ever saw. This is different. This time the strangeness was recorded live, written into an official memo, and locked in a government file. 2 nights, a landed craft warmed to the touch, a radiation meter that climbed, and a memo titled simply, Unexplained Lights. And every word of what you are about to hear is real. On the record, in the files, in the men's own voices. Suffolk, England. The eastern edge of the country, where the land runs out into the cold, gray North Sea. 2 Royal Air Force bases sit a few miles apart, Bentwaters and Woodbridge. On paper, they are British. In practice, they are run by the United States Air Force. It is the height of the Cold War. These are frontline bases, the tip of the American spear in Europe. And it is widely believed, never once officially confirmed, that somewhere behind these fences sit nuclear weapons. Between the 2 bases lies Rendlesham Forest, a dense plantation of pine planted in neat dark rows. By day it is a place for dog walkers. By night it is black, silent, and easy to get lost in. On the night of the 26th of December, 1980, the small hours of Boxing Day, a security patrol works the east gate of Woodbridge. It is bitterly cold. Most of the base is asleep, sleeping off Christmas. And then, just after 3 in the morning, they see lights. Strange lights, descending into the trees beyond the gate, coming down, it seems, somewhere in Rendlesham Forest. Their first thought is not a spaceship. Their first thought is the worst thing an airman can imagine near a base like this. An aircraft has crashed in the forest. 2 men go in to find the wreckage. Sergeant Jim Peniston, Airman John Burroughs. They leave their vehicle, climb the gate, and walk into the black rows of pines toward the glow. What Peniston would describe, though only years later, and with no one else to back the detail up, does not sound like a crashed plane. It sounds like nothing on Earth. In a clearing, he says, sits a craft, small, metallic, triangular at the base, resting on the frozen ground. It glows, and it is utterly, impossibly silent. He says he walks up to it. He says he reaches out a gloved hand and lays it on the surface. And the metal is warm, not cold like the December air around it, warm to the touch. And across that warm surface, he says, run symbols, strange markings raised that he doesn't recognize, like nothing in any alphabet he's ever seen, pressed into the skin of the thing. Then, he says, it lifts. No sound, no blast, no heat. It simply rises off the forest floor, threads itself between the trees, and is gone. One man's account. The clearing is suddenly empty and dark. Around 4 in the morning, the local police arrive, called to the scene of whatever this is. They look out over the dark forest and the dark coast, and they report seeing exactly one light. Not a craft, not a glow in the trees, a single light sweeping the dark miles away on the coast. The Orford Ness Lighthouse. Hold on to that, we will come back to it. At dawn, men return to the spot in the trees, and they find something. 3 small impressions pressed into the frozen ground, set in a triangle, scorch marks on nearby trees, branches snapped off at head height. It isn't much. 3 dents and some broken wood could be 100 ordinary things. An animal, a fallen tree, rabbits. But word is already spreading across 2 bases full of trained, sober men. Something was here. 2 nights later, the night of the 27th into the 28th, the lights come back. And this time the man who goes into the forest is not a nervous young airman. He is the deputy base commander, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt. Halt is a senior officer, and by his own account, a skeptic. He goes in expecting to debunk the whole thing, to calm his men down. And he brings two tools with him, a radiation meter and a small cassette recorder running. And then, on the tape, his skepticism starts to come apart. A red light, like a small sun, hangs in the trees ahead. It pulses. As he watches, it seems to drip, shedding glowing particles like molten metal falling. Then, he records, it breaks apart. The single red light separates into 5 distinct objects, and they shoot away across the sky in different directions, gone in an instant. His voice on the tape rises. This is a colonel losing his composure into a recorder. And his radiation meter, the AN-PDR-27, is reading. In the 3 ground impressions, the needle climbs to peaks of around 1/10 of a millirentgen. To Halt, in that forest, that needle climbing feels like proof. Picture it, a U.S. Air Force colonel, alone in a freezing English wood at the height of the Cold War, watching lights split and fly, narrating it all in a low, unsteady voice into a tape that he never imagined the world would hear. But the world would hear it. 2 weeks later, Colonel Halt sits down and does the thing that turns a strange night into history. He writes it up, an official memo on official letterhead addressed to the United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense. He gives it a title, not incident, not aircraft. He calls it, plainly, Unexplained Lights. And in 3 calm paragraphs, he describes a glowing object, the animals in the nearby farm going into a frenzy, the depressions in the ground, the radiation readings. Read it cold, and it is a remarkable document. A senior military officer, on the record, describing a UFO to his government. Not a drunk, not a dreamer, a deputy base commander. And then the memo goes into a file. And for a while, nothing happens. Then, in 1983, the file is pried open, not in Britain, but in America, under the U.S. Freedom of Information Act. The memo surfaces. An official government document describing a UFO over an Air Force base is suddenly public. The British press seizes it. The headline writes itself. The military has a UFO on file. For the believers, this is everything they ever wanted. Not a blurry photo, not a witness, but paper, with a colonel's name on it. So, what was it? Here is where honesty matters, because there is a quiet, careful explanation, and it deserves to be heard in full. It comes mostly from a British researcher named Ian Ridpath, and others who studied that very same tape. Start with the tape itself. On Halt's own recording, the pulsing light flashes at a steady interval, once every 5 seconds. And once every 5 seconds is the exact rate at which the Orford Ness Lighthouse sweeps its beam across that coast. Viewed from the elevated forest, through a gap in the ridge, that lighthouse beam appears to hover just above the ground, close and strange, and not at all like a lighthouse miles away. The police that first night saw it for exactly what it was. And the first night's descending lights? Minutes before that first sighting, a brilliant fireball, a large meteor, blazed across the skies of southern England, seen by many. The other lights in the trees track with bright stars low on the horizon. As for the radiation, 1/10 of a millirentgen is ordinary background. The ground gives off about that every day, everywhere. Even Halt, decades later, would concede he probably got the dates wrong. The Ministry of Defense reviewed it and ruled there was no threat to national security, so they never truly investigated it at all. A lighthouse, a meteor, some stars, cold, tired men, and a trick of the dark. And yet, the airmen have never recanted, not one of them. Decades on, white-haired now, Jim Penniston still says he walked up to a craft in that forest. Still says he laid his hand on warm metal and felt symbols beneath his glove. Something, he insists, not of this world. The lighthouse explains the lights in the sky. It does not explain a man who 40 years later will look you in the eye and swear he touched it. So we leave it where it truly sits, on the record, unexplained and open.